is Sunday morning on KSHP 1400 AM. We have been having trouble getting preempted by a lot of sports shows, mostly Dodger baseball. And so we moved the show to 9 a.m. on Sunday, and that seems to be a good time for us. Anyway, today's guest is murder defense specialist attorney Clark Patrick. Clark, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bob. It's always good to be here.
A little bit of your background for listeners that haven't heard this before.
Sure. If you don't know, I'm an old farm boy from Montana. Grew up around firearms and hunting my whole life. When I got a little older in the late 70s, early 80s, I did a stint with the U.S. Army as a tank commander. And for the last 12 years now, I've been in Las Vegas practicing solely murder defense.
That's so if you meet Clark in his professional capacity, that's probably not a good time in your life. If you have questions or comments, you may text or email them to bob@firedupmail.com. There's a sign behind me, hopefully, that you can read that says that. And we have an office phone number now at 702-257-1060. We do answer every inquiry either by email or text. If you want to address your email to one of our guests, just send it to that bob@firedupmail.com, and I will forward it to the appropriate guest or attorney that was on the show at that time. There is on our website, which was recently updated, a list of the attorneys that generally work on the show, and any of them would be delighted to help you with your case, I'm sure. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms every week in the United States, and 200 to 300, depending on whose data you're accepting. We always start with a few of those for the idea of getting the listeners to understand what happened and to allow them to put themselves in that position, see what the guy did right or wrong. I don't use names in the stories in general, and the idea is that you look at what happened and what you could have done to make it better, or how some of them are just plain good shootings, some are unusual, and some are just plain stupid, but they're all there so the listeners can get that as a learning experience. We are a nationwide show, and I want to do a little disclaimer here. We are giving you attorneys' opinions and some what would be construed as legal advice. We are located in Nevada. If you have a actual case, you are concerned that you shot somebody or you have a dispute going on that may lead to that, you need to contact an attorney in the state you live in. The laws vary greatly from state to state. Obviously, what would be a good shoot in Wyoming is not going to be a good shoot in New York City. So please bear that in mind. Our listeners' base is about 70% out of state, including some out of the country. So what we try to do is offer opinions that will keep you generally safe from getting killed, safe from criminal charges being filed against you, and safe from civil lawsuits, which happen all the time. So this case was actually reported just recently in the Las Vegas Review-Journal back on the 5th of this month. It's a local case here. A man attempted to sell a ring. He was meeting the prospective buyers at 10 p.m. and they agreed to meet in the parking lot of the Boulder Station Hotel Casino. It's on the what we call the Boulder Strip here in Las Vegas, 4111 Boulder Highway. The seller decided to call off the transaction when several other people showed up, according to a Metropolitan Police spokeswoman, Laura Metzler. Then one of the buyers, would-be buyers, pointed a gun and attempted to rob the guy selling the ring. He then pulled his own gun and fired a shot in self-defense. The would-be buyer, now the would-be robber, now the would-be fleeing felon, and his associates then ran. There's no evidence that anyone was injured. Apparently, the individual firing in self-defense didn't hit anybody. The seller of the ring had a permit to carry concealed, according to the LVMPD. All's well that ends well. We have an errant shot out there that apparently didn't hit anybody.
Which is fairly lucky.
Yeah, just
That's
some
pretty congested area.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty high crime area, the Boulder Strip, particularly at 10 o'clock at night. Meeting buyers in a parking lot, especially at night, is really a dangerous thing to do. In this case, more dangerous for the criminal than the individual trying to sell a ring. But I just got to tell you that this guy is really lucky. The buyers turned out to be robbers. He could have well been killed.
Or at the very least had his ring stolen.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody gives the excuse, I'm interested in the ring, this was an online thing, again, and they give you the excuse, well, I can't meet you anytime but 10 o'clock at night on this lonely stretch of road, you know, whatever. This was a little safer, is in front of a hotel where there are surveillance cameras.
If they could meet outside, they could have met inside the hotel next to the security desk just as easily.
Or in the parking lot of the police department. There's actually a bill in our legislature now to require law enforcement to provide a safe place to do transactions in their parking lot.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Theoretically, you could walk into the police station if you're buying a gun from somebody and see if it's stolen before you give the guy the money. We have a case of that we're going to address a little bit later. The CCW holder, in this case, being alert and paying attention to his surroundings, saved his life. It seems to me the possible profit from selling the ring is not worth the risk of getting killed. I know pawn shops won't give you very much money for stuff like that, but there's got to be a safer way to do it than meeting people in a parking lot. If you feel you have to carry a gun to that location, maybe that's an indication in your mind that you shouldn't go to
maybe that's not the spot to do that.
Yeah, this could have gone sideways easily. WAPT TV 16, this is a report in the town of Rankin, Mississippi. The sheriff's deputies responded to the 2500 block of South Pearson Road about 10 a.m. on Friday after a resident reported a trespasser. He confronted the man who had a stick. Now, there isn't really an explanation in the police reports of what the stick is, a baseball bat or a twig, but we'll assume it's large enough to cause harm. The homeowner told deputies he repeatedly told the man not to come onto his property. The trespasser didn't seem to listen and still came toward the homeowner, who was armed with a shotgun. The homeowner then shot the man in the leg. A neighbor and witness to this said, I heard 3 shots and stopped to look. At the 4th shot, the intruder fell. I don't know who it was. He just fell to the ground. The man was taken to a hospital. His condition was not known. They didn't release that. No charges have been filed yet against the homeowner. The Rankin County Sheriff, Brian Bailey, I know a guy named Brian Bailey, lives here. The case will be sent to a grand jury. Well,
I hope it was like a 410 or he had slugs in it or something, because 4 shots from a shotgun to shoot a guy in the leg seems
this
not very good marksmanship.
Apparently we are on the air. One of my listeners just typed in and said the picture is bad. Picture is pale, especially on your side. My side is pale. So we got the light on. Let me see if we can adjust that while we're here and turn those. Can we turn those bulbs down toward us? I turned them up toward the ceiling. Then we'll get a report. Thanks for staying with us on this, folks. We're learning here, but we got it on the air. That's the first step with our new camera, and we'll see if we get that that's better or that's worse from the listener. Okay, I'm going to talk about this a little bit. First, criminals and crazy people always surprise us. They do things we don't expect them to do. What sane person would bring a stick, even a really big stick, to a gunfight? 95% of bad guys will run when given an opportunity to do so. That's a reasonable stat. It's getting down toward 90% with the new breed of bad guys, but generally warned, they run away. An example of why you bring a firearm. 1 in 20 who attack when warned by an armed citizen leave. This guy didn't. On the other side, we have a resident using gunfire to prevent trespassing. There's not really a winner here.
No, could have easily stayed in the house and called the police and let them deal with it.
Yeah, you wait till the guy tries to break into your home,
right?
And you stay inside and call 911. And if he actually brings his big stick and tries to break in, then you may want to use your gun in self-defense. The resident, I'm just having trouble even picturing this. A resident fires 4 rounds and hits the guy once in the leg. There are no really heroes in this particular story. If you have a firearm in your home for self-defense, you must practice with it and practice with it and practice with it. If you keep a shotgun for home defense, go hunt rabbits with it, go to a trap range, go to a gun range, and practice shooting it at silhouette targets if you want. So you have an idea of how big the shot pattern is, and you're used to the recoil and so forth. This guy obviously was not used to his gun. If there was more information, I'm sure one of the things that it would say was the guy had never fired the gun before.
Right.
It just
sounds like it.
Had to. If he'd ever shot it once at a target, he would have not fired 3 rounds and hit the guy with the 4th round. This is in rural Mississippi. Hopefully he's not in terrible trouble. The grand jury, depending on what the rules are in that county or in Mississippi, he could be in a lot of trouble.
He could be.
This could actually end up being an attempt murder charge. We don't know enough about the law in Mississippi to comment. What I want to comment on is not the law, but the stupidity of this. If somebody's trespassing on your property with a big stick, stay in your house, call the police, let them do their job. The usual speech I make is they have body armor, they have lots of backup, and they have free lawyers. You don't. So we got to note the picture is better now, engineer sir. Apparently we just didn't have enough light on it. There we go. So we're learning. Thanks for sticking with us on this. This is going to be an interesting tape. You're watching a great experiment on Fired Up with Bob Irwin. San Bernardino Sun. This was on May 2nd in Chino Hills, California, just after 1 in the afternoon. A family was at home when they heard someone break into their gemstone courthouse by way of an upstairs balcony. It said in a sheriff's news release. California again. While his wife protected their children, the husband secured his firearm, confronted 5 intruders attempting to hold them at gunpoint. Well, that didn't work entirely well. Charlie got a drink there. The holding 5 intruders at gunpoint, obviously the first thing that happened is 2 of the suspects took off, and with the assistance of the entire neighborhood, all 5 were eventually taken into custody. The neighbors called 911 as well as the guy's wife upstairs. According to Sheriff's Dispatch, the suspects were aged 20, 19, 19, 18, and 17, all locals from Chino Hills. They were booked in the West Valley Detention Center for suspicion of attempted robbery, attempted burglary. After booking, the 17-year-old was released to his parents with a citation and a promise to appear in court. This is a home robbery. I think we'd call it a home invasion anywhere else.
Absolutely.
With 5 intruders. The guy handled this very well. He didn't fire at the fleeing teenagers. 2 stars for that.
Yep.
The neighbors jumped in to corral these guys as the police were coming. The neighbors were chasing all these guys down. People are getting so tired of neighborhood crimes. It just warms my heart to see ordinary folks assisting in the capture. They chased all these guys down. And even in California, we can expect the neighbors were, some of them were also armed, but nobody overreacted. They just took these guys into custody, let the police grab them. Now, if the state of California will actually punish them,
well, that's the big question.
depending on criminal history, I don't, they didn't get anything. They didn't apparently have weapons with them. It was just like a strong-armed home invasion. Very little information on this case, but I had to throw this in because it said the entire neighborhood chased these guys down and pointed out where they were, and
police got them.
Gave them to the police.
That's perfect.
People are just getting sick and tired of this stuff, and as I said, if they're not given something, a week in jail,
right,
some type of punishment within the bounds of the law. This is a nice story too. This is WBOI TV News 12. It's called West Virginia Always, WVAlways.com, in Clarksville, West Virginia. On the 3rd of this month, a Weston man was arrested Wednesday after police said he attempted to rob a hotel in Clarksburg. This is kind of funny, actually. The Clarksburg Police Department said the 24-year-old would-be robber went into the Sutton Inn on Emily Drive at 2 a.m., 2 in the morning, and demanded money from the desk clerk. The desk clerk told police that the criminal, who was wearing a black hoodie, jeans with sequins and earrings and had covered his face with something, attempted to intimidate the desk clerk by threatening, "Don't make me pull my piece."
Don't say it if you can't back it up.
Unfortunately for the would-be robber, the intended victim actually pulled his piece. The robber then fled the building empty-handed. If you're going to a gunfight, don't forget to bring a gun.
Right.
We've mentioned that to the good guys. Anyway, the investigating officer found him. I couldn't make this up. They found him asleep at the nearby Sleep Inn. He was arrested without incident. They woke him up. He's being charged with first-degree robbery. I just got to hand it to the clerk. He did not pursue the guy. He let the responding law enforcement officers track him down. I had a note here. I wrote this at 3 in the morning. The clerk was polite enough not to shoot the sequin-wearing individual.
Well, if he says he has a gun, you probably got to believe him. And because if you don't, you can't. So, yeah, the robber is very lucky that the clerk didn't just shoot him.
The clerk showed a lot of restraint. This, of course, will be an armed robbery charge. If you allude to the fact that you have a gun, or tell somebody you're going to harm them with a weapon or a firearm, do this, or I'm going to cause you physical injury, they are permitted to believe you. I would presume that the clerk in this case had some reasonable type of cover in case being behind the counter or something, in case the guy did actually have a gun. It's nice to see a fake armed robbery getting called on it once in a while, and the guy handled it perfectly. That's a great story. Let me see how we're doing on time. 5:27. Yeah, because we're going to take some time on the last one that we got to do. I got one I especially put in for my lawyer here today, Clark. This is KXAN TV 36, an NBC affiliate in Dallas, and the Dallas Morning News. They reported on 5/8, that's just 3 days ago, in Mesquite, Texas. A pizza driver told police he was confronted by 2 robbery suspects after arriving to deliver a pizza Saturday night. He knocked on the door of the address. The robbers opened it from the inside, and one of the suspects pointed a handgun at the driver's head. Not uncommon. The driver didn't react immediately by handing over his wallet, I guess. The suspect lowered the gun slightly and fired a round off to the side of the pizza driver. The 39-year-old pizza driver drew his firearm and returned fire with 3 rounds. The suspects then fled out the back door. They were inside the house. Police later determined it was a vacant house. This whole thing was a setup to rob the pizza guy. Both suspects, it turns out, were from Mesquite, Texas. The teen who fired the shot was found deceased in an alley behind the vacant home. When they ran out the back, he had been hit. The other 16-year-old was later arrested. Originally, this is interesting. Originally, investigators said the driver didn't have a concealed carry permit. The officer who made that initial report wrote the driver had drawn a concealed carry pistol. A little further investigation by Lieutenant Brian Parrish, a Mesquite police spokesman, searched for the driver's name to see if he had a Texas concealed carry permit and learned that he did not. But later determined the driver did have a permit from Arizona, which is honored in Texas.
Good deal.
So we talk in classes about, you know, if you do this permit, it's honored in so many states and so on. This was very fortunate. So he's not going to catch any charges regarding the unlawful carrying of a weapon, Lieutenant Parrish said. Police say the shooting death will be turned over to grand jury for consideration.
Now in Texas, I think once you get shot at, you're probably good to shoot back.
I would think so, even though the claim was the guy the robber fired a warning shot.
Yeah.
He pointed it off to the side.
Well,
I'm not sure that you'd be required to notice that. And I just want to do a little bit more on this because there was a lot of media on this. There were a lot of other reports that I left out of the story because it didn't have anything to do with the shooting itself. But the driver is a disabled Air Force veteran. He's been working at Domino's for 9 months to supplement his disability payments. He only works there part-time. He was suspended pending investigation according to the media reports.
good. So now we're all going to get Pizza Hut pizza because Domino's suspended this guy for defending his life.
Yeah, we will discover, you know, this is Domino's. This is Peyton Manning's company that he's involved with now. And isn't he?
No, he's Papa John's.
Oh, he's Papa John's.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Peyton.
So Papa John's or Pizza Hut, no more Domino's.
This type of robbery is really, really common. My grandson delivered pizzas for a while, and the money is really good. The tips are great. And several times he was approached with strong arm robberies, not with, and he just blew the guy off and left.
Yeah.
But he didn't have any guns pointed at him. But perhaps a policy change where each Domino's driver has his own security guard.
Yeah, maybe. The other thing that this brings up, talking about that he had his license valid in Texas and he's using it in, or Arizona and using it in Texas. Everybody that listens to this should write your senators and your representatives and tell them to get moving on the nationwide reciprocity bill. Now is the time that we can get that passed with control of both houses and a gun-friendly president. So write your representatives and tell them that we need to get this passed.
I disagree.
Oh, okay.
What we need is nationwide constitutional carry.
Well, that too.
I think I've read several of the bills, and the nice thing about having attorneys on the show is we don't always agree. And my reasoning, I will explain to you. If this bill is asking the federal government to regulate who carries a gun in each state, and once we ask Congress to do that, right now we have a majority Republicans. What's going to happen when we have a majority Democrats?
Yeah.
Then they're going to say, yeah, everybody has to fire 5,000 rounds. They have to be, We're asking Congress to regulate something that shouldn't be regulated. The right to keep and bear arms is in the Constitution, just in those terms. So what we need is national allowance of concealed carry. We need constitutional carry. You're allowed to carry a gun if you're not a criminal, which is what the Constitution does. They've already established in court cases, if you're a count felon, you can't carry a gun, beat your wife, can't carry a gun, etc. All we need is to let the good guys carry their guns. That's simple.
And what is it up to now?
It doesn't ask them to regulate it. It's asking Congress not to regulate it.
Was there 5 or 6 states now with constitutional carry?
If you count them all, there are actually 11, and some of them are a little goofy, where they're allowed. It only applies in major cities, or major cities can void it, and they're all different. When you go to your permit class, they will give you the information to go on handgunlaw.us, and you can find updates on most of the states if you're traveling. Some of them that say constitutional carry only are under certain circumstances and certain ages, and a lot of states are going, like Nevada now is trying to issue permits to veterans who are not 21.
Yes.
And that's all good. Some states do that. Some states then don't honor theirs because their state says you got to be 21 to possess a firearm. There's all sorts of goofy stuff. What we need to do is not regulate concealed carry. That's the solution. So there.
Okay.
A little humor here. The Houston Chronicle and Guns.com. Guns.com picked up the story, and I found it then in the Houston Chronicle. Guns.com is a great website if you want to keep up on gun stuff. Easy to find, guns.com. Reported this week, the Texas Senate passed a bill this week, on Monday, at 25-6, that will allow teachers and school employees with concealed carry permits to keep guns in their vehicles while parked on school property. They're allowed to keep their gun in their car. There's some fighting over whether it can be loaded or the ammunition, everything is that. But basically, they passed a bill that says you can have a gun on school property for teachers and school employees. The bill's sponsor, Republican Senator Brian Hughes, noted that currently parents are allowed to keep guns in their vehicles when picking up and dropping off their kids. Private sector employees are also allowed to keep their firearms in their vehicles while parked at work. If they're working at the school but they don't work, they're not a teacher, they're allowed, they're the lawn mowing guy or whatever that isn't a county employee, a school employee, they're allowed to keep firearms in their cars while they're parked at work. So the only people not allowed to have firearms in cars
are the
teachers and the custodians that work there. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
So the fact is, just about everybody in Texas can carry a gun in their car,
except for the people who work there.
Teachers.
Nice.
Once the governor signs this bill into law, the would-be school teachers should be a little less of a problem in Texas. They should be less of a problem in Texas now, right? I would think. If all those people have guns in their cars, that all the parents sitting to pick up their kids have guns and whatever. Yeah. And in Texas,
I'd be more worried about the parents than the teachers for sure.
Yeah,
because
the teachers could be people who are not trained. The teachers are the parents. We don't know. There's good parents and bad parents and goofy parents, and there's goofy teachers too. But in general, they have college degrees and they're fairly rational individuals, and they're doing a hell of a job. And
absolutely,
God bless them. Now. This is a great story that I had to get in this show. This is from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, reported on the 8th. A 66-year-old defendant was charged with first-degree reckless homicide in August for shooting and killing a 42-year-old during apparently random encounter in the front parking lot of the District 6 station of the Milwaukee Police Department. After he shot this guy, he immediately went inside and reported the shooting and was arrested. The DA This is a really long case, and you can find it on the internet. It's amazing. The DA, the prosecutor, said, quote, "This is not a complicated case," in his opening statement. "The defendant shot an unarmed man 3 times and killed him." His defense lawyer characterized the deceased as a younger, stronger, angry man looking for a fight. He contended his client was the weaker target who couldn't run and had no duty to retreat before using deadly force under the state law. The defendant had a license to carry his .40 caliber handgun, had accompanied a friend to meet someone who was selling a Benelli shotgun. They were to meet in the police station, parking lot, so the buyer could check to see if it was stolen before completing the purchase. The guy selling the Benelli didn't show up, or he came after this thing started and just left. This story was carried very misleadingly by saying gun buyer and seller in parking lot get attacked during transaction. There was no gun transaction. The headlines in the various news media made it look like they were in process of a sale and this third party jumped in. The guy with the shotgun never actually showed up. Or if he did, he showed up after the event and went away. The buyer of the Benelli was concerned he might be the target of a robbery, so he's asked his armed friend, who had a CCW, to come along. He said the 2 men were just waiting inside their van for the seller when this 42-year-old guy walked up to the open passenger window and demanded what the expletive deleted are you looking at? Apparently the guy thought they were staring at him. They were just waiting for someone. They told the guy they weren't police officer, didn't want any trouble. And the CCW holder, this 66-year-old guy, finally told the 42-year-old, "Why don't you just get the expletive deleted out of here?" The 42-year-old became angrier, said he didn't have to leave. He finally started to walk away, and then when the CCW holder began calling 911, when the guy stopped and it picked up an orange traffic cone, there was it was one of those traffic posts, thing, and threw it into the window of the car, knocking the phone out of the guy's hand that's trying to call 911 to report the guy. The 42-year-old then began walking away again, so the concealed weapon holder got out to get, the cone was in the car, got out to replace the cone. They didn't want to just drive away like they were stealing the traffic cone. But when he got out, the 42-year-old turned around, came back toward him. He didn't think that he had time to get back in the van and roll up the window or lock the door or get inside the police station, so he displayed his gun. The 42-year-old said, "Oh, you've got a gun," and kept advancing until the 62-year-old CCW holder fired at him from about 3 feet away. He's in the van, couldn't roll up the window in time. The aggressor was hit in the chest, groin, and buttocks. He was pronounced dead when he arrived at a local hospital. Now that you know basically the whole circumstances, on May 9th, 2 days ago, a Milwaukee County jury hearing this case of this guy, he is now charged with reckless homicide for shooting the 42-year-old. The jury found him not guilty of that charge.
Good for them.
And he was released. This is a great case, and I just charge in.
All right.
This is a typical guy who needs a lawyer.
Typical guy that needs a lawyer. Well, I mean, you know, in Nevada, the standard is reasonable man afraid of grave bodily injury or death. This 66-year-old guy, we don't know what kind of shape he was in, what size he is. The 42-year-old, younger, could have been bigger, more physically fit, stronger. So would a reasonable person in your position feel in fear of great bodily harm or death? And The jury said, yes, we would. So there must have been some disparity in the size of the two people, the age disparity, the fact that once somebody sees that you have a gun and keeps advancing on you, shows that they're not afraid of it. So if they're not afraid of the gun, then you're likely to get hurt, and you could just as easily have the gun taken away from you and used against you. The younger man could have easily been on some kind of substance abuse, drugs.
Well, he's obviously a nutcase.
Yeah, or mental issues, whatever. But it's definitely a good shooting because the jury said it was, and this guy was afraid for his life. It sounds like Wisconsin has a stand your ground law similar to Nevada's or Florida's, and he felt he did not have time to get back in the van. He didn't have time to get back into the police station. He tried doing things correctly by dialing 911, staying in the van when he was attacked with the cone. So
he did it exactly right.
Exactly right. There was a very similar case here in Las Vegas a few years ago where a person was approached in the parking lot by somebody who was just looking to get in a fight, and the assailant was killed, and the guy that stabbed him was taken to a jury, and the jury found him not guilty. It's the same thing. So you got to be, and it goes to show you that even if you're right, there's still a lot of problems that you're going to face between. And this started out with the criminal system, and even if you're not going through this in the criminal system, you're certainly going to go through something similar in the civil system, because the deceased in this case more than likely has a family, and even if he doesn't have a family that hasn't seen him for 10 years, all of a sudden now they're going to be crawling out of the woodworks saying what a great guy he was and how he wouldn't hurt a fly, and he was an honor student, and they'll file a civil suit against this guy, and he's going to have to defend that.
Yeah, and the argument is, well, he was only getting hit with a plastic cone, plastic traffic. It wasn't a traffic cone. It was one of those posts.
Yeah, and that's it's not what you're getting hit with. I mean, if you look at the deadly weapon statute in Nevada, I mean, anything is a deadly weapon if you use it to kill somebody, whether it's a traffic cone or whether it's a pencil, whatever. If you use it to kill somebody under Nevada statute, it's a deadly weapon.
So the answer to this, so it doesn't happen to you, if you get this same exact thing in the parking lot of a police station, don't walk into the police station and say, hi, I just shot a guy in your parking lot. Say, call an ambulance. There's a guy out there. The police heard the shots, and some were running out and doing CPR. And this guy actually tried to do CPR, but the paramedics ran over him, basically.
And that's a good thing to do.
He did everything right, and when he walks to the police station, he's going to get handcuffed. Until they discover all of the details. Right. He's going to be handcuffed or in a little cell for 3 or 4 hours. But to be charged with a crime,
that's too bad that they did that.
That's way out of line.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
A lot of people that I have worked on their cases are simply, they're not really innocent in the pure sense, but they're overcharged.
Yeah.
They're charging them with something that is, it should be voluntary manslaughter, and they're being charged with first-degree murder and that sort of thing. The prosecutors do that in order to have plea bargains, so you break into somebody's house and you're charged with burglary and a home invasion and trespassing. So the DA can go to you and say, we'll drop the trespassing charge, you plead guilty to the home invasion. And the guy who doesn't have an attorney defending him goes, oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah. So he'll do 60 days less of your 20-year sentence.
Yeah.
You're involved in something like this, you simply say, here's my gun, here's my ID, I need to talk to an attorney.
Yep.
You can talk to an attorney.
And if, you know, that wasn't in the story, but if he, after shooting the guy, if he tried to render first aid, that's great. That's what you should do. That shows that you were not trying to kill this guy, that you were just trying to protect yourself. Render first aid if it's safe to do so, if it's safe to stay in the area. When the cops come, you know, tell them who you are, that you were, you know, and that you need to talk to your attorney before you give them a statement.
Yeah, the good thing he didn't do, which people will do in this situation, and I've seen it, I couldn't tell you how many times, drive away.
Yeah.
Don't drive away if you didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
You are.
Yeah, that would have turned out worse for this guy, and he probably wouldn't be at home tonight had he drove away.
Yeah, yeah, he's, you know, it sounds stupid to say you look guilty because you're running from the scene, but how are the police and the prosecutors going to look at that you ran from the scene? I did a couple of cases where that was, if they just stayed put,
right,
they would have been fine.
You know, again, in Nevada, there's a specific jury instruction that the prosecutors give a jury that says fleeing shows guilt. If you flee to avoid arrest, that's an indication of guilt.
That's actually in our jury instructions?
Actually in our jury instructions, the flight instruction.
Oh.
Flight is an indicia of guilt.
Wow. Upcoming gun shows, we got the Las Vegas Gun Show at the Sports Center this weekend, the 13th and 14th. Fired up. We'll have a table there. I'll be there at least the major portion of the middle of the day. Are you going to be able to be at that one? No. So I'll have a table there selling books and whatever, at least partially manned until I get tired and go home. On Saturday I do have something after. I won't be there much beyond 2 o'clock, but I will be there in the morning. Crossroads of the West Gun Show, June 10 and 11. I still have some passes for that. If you would like one of these, is that focus?
I don't have a picture.
Oh, okay. They have
We'll
pictures out there, but you don't have pictures. So we do. We have pictures.
I know, but I don't. All I got to you. Little brown you.
Little round me, thanks. You know,
round is a shape.
Anyway, Crossroads of the West Gun Show. I do have some passes for that. If you want to drop me a note at that address, bob@firedupmail.com, I will get one to you, mail one to you. Reminder: we are on KSHP 1400 AM now on Sunday mornings, 9 to 10 p.m. 10 a.m. Before you go to church, listen to Fired Up while you're getting ready to go to church.
Get fired up to go to church.
Yes. Next week, I've got firearms instructor and terrorism expert Lenny Davis with me on the show. And I made this delightful rack so I could remember to do the commercials
that were in the outline
where it says commercial. And I didn't do them. So I'm going to do 4 commercials right now. Grant Defense is a company I've been working with. They are located on Russell and Jones. They manufacture AR-15s here in Las Vegas, and some really cute conversions of Glock 17s and Glock 19s. I'm really impressed with.
Do they only sell completed firearms, or do they sell?
They're just
uppers and lowers.
Completed firearms, as far as I know.
Okay.
I think on the conversions for Glocks, they're selling the lower frames, which are thinner, and I mean, they're just great. They are located, as I said, at the corner of Russell and Jones. You need to go by there and take a look. It's right next door to the Dewey Animal Shelter. They back into each other. While you're there, you can get a puppy for a watchdog and do something good and look at some amazing Glocks. They have 3 progressively more complicated versions of AR-15 rifles. I'd like to recommend the law office of Alan Buteau, where we are sitting. If you have a criminal case or a civil case that needs defending in business litigation, he is here. Free consultations, 702-319-7800. He is, as I said, one of our regular on-air attorneys. And, wait, I have more. I was supposed to be able to do this coolly off the air. You couldn't see me reaching for my prompter, but it didn't work. Jerry Creed, attorney at law, he's out in Henderson. He is a guy who does elder law, and he also does firearms trusts and Class 3 firearm trusts. He's out in Summerlin. Again, like most attorneys, he does free consultations. If you want a firearms trust, we really have a lot of weird stuff happening with NFA branch at the moment. So you might want to consult him if you have a firearms trust to make sure it's up to date, or particularly a Class 3 trust. He is reachable at 702-806-7777. He even got a cool phone number. Training is important. We've discussed a couple of cases here that training really matters. My ex-store, the gun store where I am no longer involved, still does the concealed carry class 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. You can sign up online at thegunstorelasvegas.com. I would strongly suggest, if you have a gun in your home, that you take their classes. They're relatively inexpensive. I think they're charging $75 for the basic class, which includes ammo, targets, and everything. The renewal class is $55 or $50. You need to get training from somewhere, somebody. If you're a lady and want to do a ladies class only, contact CCW Maggie. Just look up CCW Maggie on the internet, and you will find a young lady who is a great instructor that does ladies classes. That's all my commercials. It should have been spaced in the middle of that. I'm going to get the hang of this sooner or later, Clark.
All good. Just write the thing that says commercial bigger next time.
Well, I should have actually just printed that there, but I wrote them big so I could see them up here.
Right.
Nobody could see I was reading the thing off, and then I forgot it was there.
Always good to be here, Bob.
It's always fun playing with the new cameras, but this is going to work. We have a show that was on the air. And
you did get my lovely young wife on the air one time, Bob.
I have tried so many times. And she sits off camera and glares like she's doing now. She's a really smart lady, been a paralegal and all kinds of things for her whole career, and
yes,
knows her stuff. You're going to have a great law practice when you get to Idaho or Wyoming or
Montana.
Montana. One of those states up there. Thanks for listening to Fired Up. We'll have it more put together next week. Lenny Davis will be here. We're going to talk about terrorism and firearms laws and training. Please be with us next week. Hopefully we'll have all this put together, getting more professional every time. Now, you all got to see the show, and we couldn't.
We couldn't.
But we'll fix that. We're on the air. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great weekend. Tune in Sunday morning and listen to it again.
Excellent.
Thank you.
We're done.